Fellow Southern Cameroonians, I'm glad to be here again to talk to you. This week is gone by. This is the second week, a week during which the people of the Southern Cameroons again have demonstrated our resilience. That we observed 3 days of ghost towns, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for 2 weeks already, non-stop. We have demonstrated and sent out a clear and sound message to Mr. Paul Biya that we are not about to put down our arms. We are going into the third week. And next week, we are still going to observe ghost towns on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Yes, schools have not resumed. Schools have definitely not resumed. I know there are some of you who have gone to panic mode. And you'll be shocked seeing my optimism. You have gone into panic mode because you have seen all reports of previous years being recycled to show you, to claim that schools have resumed. A good lot of you have access to STV. STV is a television channel, private television channel running in Cameroon, running in mainland Cameroon with head office in Douala. You have watched Equinox. It's also headquartered in Douala. These television channels, until this Thursday afternoon, this Thursday the 14th of September, have continued to broadcast reports to show us empty classrooms in much of southern Cameroons. I know some of you will say, oh, in Fako there are some schools going, in Mezam and all of those things in some of the metropolitan cities. Be careful. You remember that we even showed you buses that ferried students from La République to most of those schools to use them as baits, so that you will sit down and tell yourself that, but why am I staying? I'm not sending my children to school when other children are already in schools. That is why it is only some of those schools that they are showcasing to you that you are seeing, and you have the feeling that classes have resumed. No, the people of Southern Cameroons are resolute. They are speaking, and they will continue to speak. Take note, the governing council, headed by Sisiku Ayuk Tabe and Mr. Tassan Wilfred, they have not at any given moment said our children will never go back to school. They are working conveniently to ensure that when the time comes, they will announce that our schools are resuming and our children will go back to school in very good conditions, without soldiers carrying guns and sitting in classrooms or turning around the campuses where a stray bullet can blow off the head of a teacher or a student. That is not about to happen. The governing council is working on that. And so you have to remain resolute and remain confident. And again, to some of you who are looking at other indices and saying, oh, it's like places are so calm, this struggle is ended. No, remember, this particular struggle is not that kind of struggle that ends without victory. All of us Southern Cameroonians should consider ourselves lucky, especially those who are involved on a daily basis, because we are members of an army whose commander-in-chief is God himself. And God has never lost a single battle, let alone a war. So why should we be in panic mode? I want to refresh our minds. There are a good number of us who a good number of times have predicted the end of this struggle. Yes. Remember, at least 6 different times people have said, oh, this struggle has ended. Then 2 or 3 days after, they suddenly realized that the struggle was just beginning. This is that kind of book, that kind of novel, that kind of play that has several moments of climax and equal moments of denouement. And you have the feeling at any moment that the story is about to end, when it is just about beginning. The people of the Southern Cameroons will only end when we will have secured victory. Talking about victory, this has been an eventful week again, with so much recorded both on the national and international scene. I'm sure all of you have heard about the landmark resolution passed in the US Senate, whereby the President of the Republic of Cameroon, Mr. Paul Biya of La République, and his government have been given 30 days to provide valid answers to all what we, led by the Foley Hawk law firm, Wenner, explained at the State Department. Yes, a lot of US senators took interest in this story. And all the work, the offensive we have been on, is continuing. And you know what is at the end of that discussion? Because the United States is likely to suspend financial aid and other forms of cooperation with La République du Cameroon based on the abuses that are taking place in the southern Cameroons. Because money and resources given for them to use against Boko Haram, real terrorists in the far north, are being deviated to the southern Cameroons to fight unarmed and innocent civilians. That is exactly what we are doing. That is exactly how we are scoring those victories. We even heard some of them getting excited in newspapers. You know, these are people who are champions of manipulation, champions of falsehood. La République du Cameroon. That's why you see some of their newspapers have even gone ahead to publish that the Queen of England and the English people chased away the governing council leadership and southern Cameroonians from the United Kingdom. And of course, you know, it is not true. You all saw the letter from Buckingham. That was an extremely positive letter. If you know how many letters get into Buckingham Palace daily, that the Queen took the pains to say, respond to this letter. And she did not just respond to say, I can't receive you. The Queen could not receive the governing council at that point in time because she didn't have enough information on the exact situation currently in southern Cameroons. That is why she directed the query to the foreign minister so that the foreign minister and others should be able to carry out succinct investigations and give her adequate information. And you know when this information comes after the British government had issued a document before saying that they were standing by the results of the 1961 referendum conducted by the United Nations. So why did the Queen have to refer the issue back to the foreign ministry after they had issued that document? This is simply because the Queen has realized herself that this is a serious matter. So forget about those propagators of manipulation and all of those things. Take note that the information war in which we are sometimes can change hands. We are bringing in valid information, but you have masters of manipulation on the other side of the easel. So you always have to be careful and watch out. Now, another reason why some of you have been bothering that it would appear we are losing steam, it would appear the struggle is fading out, is because you have heard that our lawyers have called a meeting for the 23rd of September in Mamfe. And some newspapers have reported that top on the agenda of that meeting is to call off the strike. Good. I know it's some subject for worry, but I really don't know why you have to get worried. Because this is not the first time that the common law lawyers are meeting to discuss the state of the struggle. Remember when they had the first meeting in Kumba? A lot of people said that meeting was sponsored to call off the strike. But what came out of that meeting? Barrister Bobga will tell you, that meeting ended up being the one at which the Commonwealth Bar Association was created. Again, we had situations where some who called themselves senior lawyers met with the Bar Association in Bamenda and in Boya and said they were calling off the strike. Did it happen? It did not come to pass. And again, this other meeting that is called in Mamfe, it is not the Common Law Bar Association. It is the Cameroon Bar Association, meaning you find here that there is a problem. Why should the Cameroon Bar Association go to hold its meeting in Mamfe? And you can therefore understand where the agitation is coming from and why government quickly authorized it. I know, I've read Prophet Kingsley say some of the youth in Mamfe have said that meeting will not hold. Anyhow, I wouldn't want to dabble into something that I did not initiate, but let me point this out very clearly. There is no way that meeting can result to the calling off of the strike by lawyers. And the reason is simple. Because if you look at it, the majority of those lawyers who started this struggle because they said things were not going well were the younger lawyers. And they are still in the majority until today. And now, lest I forget, while we allow the lawyers to freely sit down and determine how to continue to push this struggle, to make it stronger, because that will end up actually being the objective of that meeting, let me just take this opportunity to remind our lawyers that so much is at stake. You started this struggle. Southern Cameroonians have been suffering over the years, but were managing in one way or the other to overcome their pains until you came out. And Southern Cameroonians saw you dragged on the streets, your wigs, desecrated, your profession wrapped in mud. And so Southern Cameroonians followed the teachers who joined you, and all other walks of life followed in. And we came in and said, We shall not see you cry and will allow you cry alone. And now this has become a community and entire societal issue. You cannot now back out. You can't. Unless you as alleged lawyers, you know it. You know what happens in such circumstances. Unless you are going to assure us that those lives that have been lost as a result of this struggle which you started, you are going to resuscitate those young people and bring them back to life. Unless you assure us that all what we have lost in ghost towns, in people's shops that have been burnt by agents of La République, in schools and all that have been brought down by agents of La République because of this struggle, that you are going to restore all of those things. Unless you are assuring us that you're going to make it possible that all of us who have abandoned jobs and abandoned everything we have ever worked for and run out of the country to continue to push this struggle that you initiated, that you're going to do full reparation. This is not a threat, because I can't be threatening you. But also note that court action can also be taken against you if you do such a thing. And so I'm just saying this as, a form of joking, because sometimes we must be able to, draw back and relax a bit. But I'm just using this to remind you that we have to go all the way. The stakes are too high. And this is not the time for anyone to take people on an expensive ride. Fellow Southern Cameroonians, I want to draw our attention to the fact that as far as we are concerned, Mr. Paul Biya has left Yaoundé already. He will pass through his other real country, that is Switzerland, relax for a few days and come over to the United States here, come over to New York. You know that the showdown in New York on the 22nd of September will be unprecedented. Because the reports that Mr. Biya's ministers, Professor Gogomo, Ngole, and Professor Nkoru came to the United States, the report they went and gave him back was that all was okay. We have to let Mr. Biya use his own personal eyes and see for himself that all is not well. Yes, we are aware that they have chartered people to whom they are giving hundreds of dollars. They will lodge them, they will do whatsoever for them to come and counter us. That is a good moment, because right there at the United Nations, every other head of state coming, all the officials will see the two Cameroons distinctly. They will see the La République du Cameroon on the one side and the people of Southern Cameroons. That is why we are saying nobody should stay behind. Don't draw back. Everyone must be part of this fray. There is no way you can stay behind and think that you are part of this struggle. You are in the United States, you are in Canada, make sure you find your way to New York. And for those of you who are on the mainland, remember, we have told you this over and over, that on the 22nd, you must come out. This communication I'm bringing to you today is just because I realized that some of us are beginning to feel, trying to feel that, oh, the struggle is not going. No. I will be back to talk to you again on Saturday or Sunday, so that we know, because we have to continue talking daily. Even if we have to talk every day, you should know that we are on the upper scales. You should count yourself privileged to be a soldier in an army where God is commander-in-chief. You should count yourself privileged to be in a struggle which does not collapse, which faces so many obstacles but overcomes all of these obstacles. Now, one take-home message before we end this communication, which has been a bit long. I want to say, when you get back to your house every day and you're about to climb into your bed and sleep, ask yourself this important question: what did I do this day that certainly contributed to take the struggle one step ahead? Do not only go back and when you're getting into your bed, you ask yourself, for all this time that I've been sacrificing in this struggle, putting in money, putting in energy, I've even lost my job and I'm now searching for another one. What have I benefited from this struggle? None of us has anything to benefit from this struggle right now. The only benefit we are going to have from this struggle is making history. That in our generation, we were able to take back our country, to take back our destiny into our own hands, and to ensure that our children and our children's children will not suffer slavery and servitude as has been our lot. This is the message that I am bringing to you today. And this is the way that we must go. The Lord continues to be our strength.